Hello everyone, GoldenNova here, and no, that thumbnail is not clickbait. I took a Crystal Beast deck to my regional. Okay, rather I'm taking a Crystal Beast deck to regional. I'm actually filming this section right here the day beforehand. I wanted to do a little bit of a vlog thing, because I haven't done that before, and I wanted to, catalog the experience, as it will. I kind of wanted to do it for Charlotte, but I kind of dropped the ball on that one, which is a real shame, because then I would have been able to catch Noah on camera, which I know all of you want to see, but nope, that is information for me, and me alone. There's a couple of problems with this, though. I only figured out that there was regionals around me very close to when it was being held, so I've been kind of on the clock. I also have budgetary problems, because I can't spend all that money buying a full-power Tearlaments deck, or a Spright deck, or any of those big fangled decks y'all are playing nowadays to top your events. So I needed something that was cheap, but also powerful. And thankfully, I had just the solution. No, not the Dark World structure deck that was coming out just around this time. I'm talking the Crystal Beast structure deck, which actually has some legs under it. Unless you're Rainbow Dragon, in which case, you don't need legs. Now, I'd love to show you a montage of my training process. The problem is that before any kind of major event, I turn into a big nervous baby and I'm unable to sit down and actually test decks in an environment, so I don't have a lot of play experience with the deck. However, I did sit down and have a training session with NESHY. I've learned a lot more about how the deck operates and the little nuances that you want to look out for, and I'm feeling pretty good. That being said, I can't wait for tomorrow where I can regale you with all of my trials and tribulations. But like I said, I learned about this regionals a little last minute, which means I have a problem. I don't have all the cards I need. While you can buy 3 copies of the Crystal Beast structure deck and get a lot of the cards available, there's a lot of staples we're running that I don't have lying around. You can probably tell I haven't played Paper Yu-Gi-Oh! In a while. Thank you, Master Duel. That means we have to go on a bit of a hunt, though. My usual haunts have their inventories strangely depleted right now. They don't have anything that I would need to help build this deck, so I'm gonna have to go on a bit of a drive to see if we can find what we need. So, we're on the clock. Let's get going. So this is the point where I'd show you a bunch of footage of my time going around looking for cards and what happened during the day of the event. But the entire audio is really bad. There's this weird popping noise going on every once in a while. Who knew you'd need professional grade equipment to do a quality vlog, huh? So this is about the only salvageable clip I have. Let's go into the recap of the event really quick. Spoilers, it didn't go very well. Well, that was exhausting. So yeah, we're back. Didn't really get the results we were hoping for, but I think, like I've said before, we've identified what the issues were. I was focusing on getting the actual cards, didn't have time to practice. I know that this deck has a lot of potential to it. It's been proven. Stronger pilots than me have done it. So I'm hoping that next time I'll be a lot more prepared on the actual card side, and I can focus on preparing this part, a duelist's most powerful weapon, and to, you know, put all of it down and immortalize my experience. I think a tournament port is in order. So round 1, going up against Sprights. Oh no, before I say anything, I should say that over the entire event, didn't take a single die roll. I know that everyone says that. Literally, I could not win a die roll to save my life, so I was going second every game won this format. That might have changed a few things. I had some pretty strong going first games this tournament, so it might have changed a few things, but that's neither here nor there. If your deck can't win going second, that's still a disadvantage. Slash, if you can't win going second. I shouldn't be putting this on the deck. As a pilot, it's also my responsibility to play the deck well, and as I'll show you, I've made some mistakes here. So, like I said, round 1, Spright, lost 0-2. Game 1, I felt like I had this under control. I opened with D-Shifter, so I was able to stop any graveyard shenanigans. They couldn't, like, loop a bunch of swap frogs with Elf to get a bunch of free advantage, but they did, they didn't do much on that turn, and I established a board. I went for some damage. The turn afterwards, they came in with, because I wasn't able to kill them. I didn't have the damage for it. They came in with enough level 2s to make that weird Mosquito Xyz monster that just came out in Crystal Revenge. I hadn't seen it before, so I wasn't able to evaluate it very well. I shouldn't have had to, as you'll see in a moment, because they also dropped a Druis Worm because I had that D-Shifter in the graveyard. And I'm thinking, well, if I kill the Druis Worm, it's going to remove one of my special summoned Crystal Beasts. If I commit to a Zenith, I'm in trouble because, you know, it's not like I can't just, I don't know, put it back in the back row or resummon it with something else at some point. I was really focused on that Druis Worm, avoiding its trigger. So we're in battle phase. The Mosquito puts hallucination counters on a Pegasus that I had. Starts dealing burn damage. I let that happen because I forgot that it triggers on... Or not forgot. I read it, but then I didn't see that it triggered on any attack, not just when that Xyz monster attacked. So, once again, misvaluing what it can do. I let it go on for way too long until I finally conclaved the Pegasus off my board, getting rid of their Druis Worm, so as to avoid getting a Topaz Tiger run over, so I don't take as much damage. But because the Mosquito had battled, guess what? It's an Xyz monster, so they made Zeus and they ran away with it. I couldn't get back into the game from that point. Game 2 didn't really register. If I remember correctly, I stopped them from making it totally awesome because I hard drew a Zombie World. But that wasn't exactly a combo piece. You don't want to be hard drawing the Zombie World. So we lost that one straight out. Round 2, we were against Floowandereeze. Game 1, I was not going to be in that game. My opening hand did not have enough to get through the M-Pen, Barrier Statue, 2 back row, and the map they had ended up setting. Thankfully, the Zombie World was the top deck in that situation. Played it, didn't have a response, and I was able to use a combination of Rainbow Bridge of the Heart to bounce the M-Pen, so I could get my special summoned effects back on. And then a Battle Phase Pegasus to hit over the Stormwinds. I popped off during main phase 2. I wanted to make full use of Zenith in the back row, so I had to beat over the Stormwinds first, because otherwise I wouldn't be able to summon Topaz Tiger with it. It'd have to be another Pegasus, which might have also been another good play, because then I would have had 2 Pegasuses. I could have summoned Chidori still, set one of their back row, and then used to the bottom of their deck, and then detached the material to put their map on top of their deck, or put the Stormwinds on top of their deck. That was the better play, I think. I didn't want to play into any bad back row. Like, I didn't want to commit too much and then get hit by back row. I wanted to keep my options open. But the Lightning Chidori play was also probably another good one. Anyway, took the game over from that point. Zombie World putting in a lot of work. Game 2... I completely punted. I was in a very winnable state. They set up, they didn't set up again. They were in a very weak position, but they had map. And I'm like, if I normal summon, I'm gonna give them an opportunity. So I started playing around it. I got my hands on a Foolish Burial Goods, sent the trap card to the graveyard, Rainbow Bridge of Salvation. You banish it, you search a field spell, you search a Crystal Beast. I got Zombie World in hand, I got the Pegasus, I normal summon the Pegasus, and my opponent figures out my issue because I should have just windmill slammed the Zombie World and have been done with it. I lost the game. Basically immediately from that point on. I'm like, I see you have Ryza going into rotation. I'm not wasting our time. Let's go to game 3. I want as much as possible. I go first. I open a combo that gets me into Zombie World again. That gets slapped onto the board. I get a nice Crystal Beast spread. And by spread, I mean 1 Sapphire Pegasus and a bunch of back row. They go, okay, Lightning Storm, and I'm like, can't let that happen. Crystal Miracle. And I had the Conclave face up at that point. So I popped the Sapphire Pegasus. Lightning Storm goes away. Conclave triggers. Summon Ruby Carbuncle out of the deck. We get the Sapphire Pegasus back out. We put another Sapphire Pegasus in the back row. I have Conclave at this point. They use the map to normal summon one of their birds. Declined the effect. Normal summoned an Eaglin afterwards, declined the effect, and then overlaid for Assembled Nightingale, or whichever Lyrilisk Xyz lets you attack directly. It's one of those. And they saw the writing on the wall. They were all like, what do you... If I were to go to battle phase, what would happen? And I'm like, well, I'll let you go to battle phase. But yeah, he knew. He went to battle phase. In start step, I immediately conclaved, put the Ruby Carbuncle back in my hand, and the game was basically over from that point. So we 2-1. Could have been a 2-0. So I'm not entirely proud of my performance on that one, but I'm glad I pushed through a situation where I could have seen myself beating up on myself so badly that it affected my performance game 3. I'm glad that did not happen. I'm going to take that as a tiny win for me. Tiny win for Nova. Okay, round 3 was Tearlaments. This is one that I don't remember fully because it was Tears. I hadn't really sat down against a full powers Tear deck, especially in real life. So they were like milling cards. I'm like, okay, yeah, I will trust you. I did my best to point out or keep in mind which Tear effects had been used at any given point. But yeah, I was out of that game the entire time. I hard drew Rainbow Dragon both games. I should say I lost 2-0. I was on the bad receiving end. I didn't pick up a single game against that. So yeah, I hard drew Rainbow Dragon both games. So I couldn't use Zenith effectively to gain some extra value on that. I really couldn't establish a board. So that was rough. After that point, no. There was something in there. I learned something in that game, though. I learned how replays work a bit better. Because I was always under the impression that anytime a monster count changes on the board, before we get into damage step, you gotta replay. So I was like, oh, you have an Avermax, cool. I have a Zenith in hand. I gotta get board presence out somehow, so I can just stop the. I'll declare against the Avermax, summon the Zenith, and then on redeclare, I'll be all like, no, I'll be fine. But the guy's like, you can't do that, and I was sure that there was a misunderstanding. Called the judge over, and he let me know that I was the one with the misunderstanding. It has to be legal targets for you to attack into, not a change. So learn from my mistakes on this one. Don't be caught on this one. A little embarrassed. It's always weird to stand your ground on a ruling, call the judge over, and then you know, be told you were wrong. But it is within your right. So as long as you are not, like, you know, calling someone a liar, or you're making sure you keep an open mind, realize that you have an understanding of the game, but you might be incorrect. Just call the judge over, have them explain it, and once they explain it, just take the information and move on. So I learned something. So there we go. Round 4. This was post lunch. Opponent didn't show. I got a buy on this one, so technically instead of a 3 wins and 2 losses record, you could see this as a 2 wins, 3 loss record, because I didn't really earn a 3rd win, but that'll be for all of you to decide. So there's that. Round 5, I was paired against Umi Control, a matchup I was not prepared for, but thankfully we won it 2-1. But of course, I don't even know if I was going to get out of game 1, but we'll never know, because I lost game 1, and part of the reason I lost it is because I threw every activation I could that game. I was playing horribly, and I can't blame not having food in my tummy, because we were post-lunch. I had that stuff. They, like, set up the Lord Kyriushin lock. They had the Legendary Ocean. They searched out Sea Stealth attack, so we knew they had that. But they also de-shifted us at the beginning of their turn, so that was wild. It goes around to me, and I see the Foolish Burial Goods in hand, and I'm like, thank God, I don't have a lot of other plays in here. I slap the goods on the graveyard, and my opponent reminds me, before I resolve it, thankfully, that he had an active D-shifter on board, so I sent another Foolish Burial Goods, because I didn't want to give anything up. Oh my god, so that was bad. We didn't have a good setup. I wanted to attempt to get rid of the Legendary Ocean or Kyriushin, either way. I Rainbow Bridge of the Hearted, attempting to bounce the Kyriushin, but they decided they were going to bounce it with Sea Stealth attack, so that was gone. And that was all I thought of it, right? Because I'm like, oh, he's using it to save his monster. That's the effective Sea Stealth attack. So, like, later on in the turn, I try to, like, now that Kyriushin isn't applying that weird pseudo Gozen lock, I link off 2 monsters for Phoenix, trying to pop the field spell so he doesn't get it, and he's all like, you realize that we're under Sea Stealth, so that was a bad game 1, okay? Try to be very mindful. Please don't do what I did. Anyway, point is, we go to game 2 at that point. I'm going first, and in this game, I open the Stones. I get enough so I can establish a secret village lock. We link away a Pegasus and another monster. for win, put that on the board. And it turns out, if you can't actually play Umi, you can't use a lot of those effects. You can't normal summon the Kairyushin for free. They tried playing... There's this monster who makes it count as Umi on the board while they're on here. I'll try to get a googly image up here somewhere. But the funny thing, I reread it, because I'm like, oh, they have Umi, this sucks. I reread it, and this is an old card. This is a really old card when they really, like, were first pushing, like, Umi decks. And it says, the field counts as Umi while they're on the board, unless there is an active field spell card on the field. So inadvertently, hidden secret village of the spellcasters was floodgating that effect out too. Game 3 went similarly. They weren't able to establish anything super strong on their turn, so we were able to play. We reestablished the spellcaster lock. And the game was over from that point on. They didn't have any place to get around that, because you got to be able to play a field spell if you want to get that Umi power. I guess you also have to be able to play Sea Stealth too, but we weren't letting that happen. So we walked away with Umi control 2-1. Round 6 was the last one out of the day before I felt like calling it quits. It was Tearlaments again. I was feeling really good coming out of Game 1, though, because we lost 2-1. Though it wasn't because we outplayed our opponent, it was because their mills Game 1 were absolutely atrocious. They ended on a Dragostapelia and a field spell, and they had a Keldo engrave, I believe. It was one of the shuffling Tier Shizu cards. But they didn't have any tiers in graveyard to shuffle back to trigger the field spell's destruction effect, which was great. So we effectively went full combo. We bounced the Dragostapelia with the Rainbow Bridge of the Heart, and then we literally OTK'd. Double Pegasus, Topaz Tiger, and a Zenith. That's 18 times 2 is 36, plus another 16 from Topaz Tiger, that's 52. Add another 3,000 from Zenith, that's 8,000. This deck can OTK. It did not hurt that I opened the stones, so that was good. Game 2, they went first. They established everything they needed to. Once again, it's another blur. I can't really remember it, but they took the game because they had a really good setup. And we didn't open like a D shifter or any bestials to help with that. Which sucked, you know. We played a lot of counter cards in the main to deal with Tearlaments, and I don't think we saw them at all over the course of this tournament, which it would have helped. Game 3, we go first, and I feel like we had this game, like, we had a good chance of winning this game. We went first. We were able to bin the Rainbow Bridge of Salvation. We set up Necro Valley, and we set up a pretty good board, but I had, like, double Conclave, a Ruby Carbuncle in back, and Topaz and Pegasus. And they go Swords of Concealing Light, and that sucks because now I have 2 less targets for Conclave's bounce. All I have is the Carbuncle in back row. They have the and I was really hoping we were still out of it because, you know, Necro Valley's on board. What they can get their mill effects. I believe they Merlied into like search or something. I forget exactly what it was. I think they did like Celiac into searching out Rhino Heart. But it's like, well, none of that matters. But they had the instant fusion going Kick Colosse, search Heartbeat, and I'm like, well, that sucks. I attempt to use the Conclaves. I went ahead and preemptively like flipped them face up so I could use them both. We double targeted. We used both effects at the same time. We double targeted our Ruby Carbuncle. One of the Conclaves bounced the Necro Valley, which was good. Well, rather, it was to keep it safe so that we could use it next turn if we're able to bait their interaction. And then the other one went to the Kick Colosse, so they couldn't use its ability, which I think were the best targets we could have hit off that one. The Swords of Concealing. I'm starting to think that maybe hitting the sword... No, they could have reactivated the Swords of Concealing. I was actually It was actually good that I didn't do that. So that was good I didn't do that. Anyway, point is, once they got rid of that, they just blasted through what defenses I had left. They didn't even attack into my Crystal Beast. They had enough removal between the Field Spell and Kaleido Heart to just wipe out my my cards. And that was OTK from there. So, yeah, I don't know what I could have done better in that situation. I feel like that was one of those things where it's like, in that scenario, I played well. Though maybe there was a point where I could have, I'm trying to remember if I did a search and if I got a second Conclave or if I could have gotten for Miracle. If I had gone for Miracle, I could have miracled the Heartbeat, and then they still wouldn't have any game against me. Would have been able to recover. But I don't remember if I searched a second Conclave or if I just hard drew both of them. But yeah, in that scenario, it is impossible to overstress how important it is to have a Crystal Miracle on hand to stop the removal spells against Necro Valley, because our opponents have a lot of difficult times dealing with Necro Valley. Anyway, so all in all, yeah, no, I think this deck is really, really solid. Once again, I must emphasize that the issue with this tournament was a lot on me. I was not prepared for a lot of these matchups. I didn't have the practice to identify the Tearlament lines, to know where the choke points were, where best to hit them at, what to really pay attention to. I do not chalk this up to playing a bad deck. You have a searchable Omni Negate in the form of Crystal Miracle. You have a way to bounce cards through Crystal Conclave at quick effect speed that also resets your own cards too. You have a search continuous spell that gives you an extra normal summon that also bounces your opponent's cards. And bouncing, might I add, probably one of the best ways to deal with cards in this format, because you're not sending those big monsters to the graveyard by an effect, you are bouncing them. It's wild. Crystal Beasts are so cool, and they're so powerful, and I am a person who makes YouTube videos all the time, so my schedule is packed. There's not a lot of time to find practice. Well, okay, there's not a lot of time for me to get practice. I'm sure there's ways to practice through the schedule. I just haven't found them yet. But you might be someone who has a lot more free time on their hands. You might be someone that has a lot more free time on their hands. Every time I talk, all the time. Always hitting things. I have too much talk hand syndrome. You might be a person with enough free time to learn the intricacies of this deck and how to beat our opponents. Now, it's not the cheapest thing. Of course, you're putting money down for 3 structure decks, which is about like $30+ like 36 ignoring tax. But that's a lot cheaper than a lot of cards, though there are a lot of staples that you'll be running. I know that the Prosperities in the deck are cheaper than they have been, but they're pretty expensive. Nonetheless, like the single Prosperity is more than I spent on the entire structure decks. And you want 3 of those to see the exact pieces. The Kashtira Fenrir's you'll want to be playing, that basically everyone is playing this format, will run you a pretty penny, though I will say we did come up with a bit of a spicy pick. I teched in Kwakimaru Drago. It's not searchable, unfortunately, so you kind of have to hard draw it, but because you're putting Rainbow Dragon in your hand, every time you pull off a Zenith play, you will have a dragon available to pay for its cost. It didn't really come up this tournament because I didn't draw into it in a meaningful way. It's one of those things where if we had gone first and we had a Drago, great normal summon to pair with the Rainbow Bridge of the Heart, right? Like, just getting that for free would have been stellar. I cannot imagine we would have lost a lot of games where we established that early on. Good tea. So I would recommend it, though, because I think the theory behind it is great. It's obviously not as good as breaking boards as Kashtira Fenrir is, which is unfortunate, and that's probably better. Because then, you know, if you're someone like me who loses die rolls a lot, Fenrir actually helps to deal with those boards. But if you're looking to play a cheaper version of the deck, I cannot recommend Drago enough. I think it's a really funny tech card. A great attack stat on it, too. It's just lovely. I love that thing. And then you get the benefits of being able to keep it safe with all your control cards. Like, if the tier player wants to be all like, oh, well, your Drago may have 1900 attack, but I'm activating my field spell and I'm normal summoning my Rhino Heart, you'll be all like, no, no, no. I do not think so. I'm going to conclave that off the board, so you will not be able to do that. Thank you very much. You're giving them the normal summon back, but, like, your Drago is more important. Now, I've gone through the tournament report. You might want to see a deck list, and I can't show it to you in good conscience. This is because the deck list, while some changes were made to it, is largely the creation of NESHY, who I would call the patron saint of Crystal Beast at this point in time. He's put a lot of work into theory crafting, putting stuff into practice, and I'd feel bad just taking his innovations and planting them on my channel, but I can tell you where you can find it. Of course, go follow NESHY, go subscribe to his channel. The man is the platonic ideal of the duelist. He has fun playing the game, he's smart, he thinks outside the box, and he's so laser focused on Crystal Beasts that he's found the way to make them competitively viable in tier format. It's wild. So if anyone is worthy of your attention, it's NESHY. And I'm also going to point you towards his Patreon. I'm going to link it whatever side of the screen this is supposed to be. Go follow his Patreon, because that's where I got the information from. And that might seem, if you're someone who feels that's a little weird, like, why am I paying money for deck list stuff? I can kind of understand. But I would say that if anyone has put in the work to deserve that support, it's NESHY. And of course, if you do that, you're also supporting him making great Crystal Beast content moving forward. If you are a rogue player in any stretch of the imagination, being able to support him is honestly a privilege, so I would highly recommend it. And you're not just getting a deck list too, by the way. When you get to the tier that I pledged at, you're getting the Conclave control list that I focused on. There's also the Over Dragon Turbo, so if you want to play the big fusion monster that just came out, that's a list that you can get. I believe he has stuff for like speed duels, Edison, all kinds of other common charity. It's stacked with that. And you get access to his sighting notes so that you don't have to go through the whole process of figuring out what works with this matchup, what works with this matchup. You just get to know what the optimal swaps are, saving you time in tournament, so you're giving that stuff a little extra time and not getting hung up on an opponent trying to shark you for time. And I think that's worth the price of what is ostensibly a fourth structure deck. So you get a ton of knowledge, and you're helping support a really great person doing great work in the community right now. I think it's a win-win, honestly. So that's my pitch for NESHY. Go follow him to get some more. Go follow his channel to get more general information. Sub to his Patreon to get those specifics that he's crafted over his long time of playing it. And I think that's all I've got for you. Deck is strong. I need to work on my matchups. Here's hoping that the format is still a good place for Crystal Beasts 3 months from now. And honestly, you know what? It's gonna be, because the deck has so many really good tools to it that, they're gonna have to release some really hard counters for the deck to keep it from being rogue playable at this point, and I don't see that happening. It turns out we don't fall to the same kind of side deck issues that the top decks do right now, which is a strong place to be for rogue decks. Not all of them can do that. Anyway, thank you all so much for watching, and speaking of Patreons, speaking of, I'm going to figure out how to do transitions at some point. Speaking of patrons, I need to give a big thank you to the ones that helped made all of this possible. So, without further ado, this episode was brought to you by my lovely patrons, including this month's illustrious Quasar Commander, Julius Sneezer, Nebula Navigator's 3rd Dynasty, Adam Zajdel, Avi Chali, Kane Senpai, Cameron Berg, Chibi Gohan, Eric, Frankie, Genesis Yu-Gi-Oh!, Gloomba331, Great Big Pillock, Harry the Ominous Benefactor, Howling Zangetsu, Ironic, John Manji, Julius Sneezer, Larakia, Mana Charge, Marluxia is a Girl, Meteornus, Michael Madsen, Mighty Action X, Panther J, Rebel King Lucifer, Rem T Bright, RJ the Jank Monarch, Ruxith Sarani, Sophie, apparently, The Fresh Prince of Conair, The Wizard Moose and Xander Wolfensberger, Cosmic Crusaders Ariel Kersey, Bear Sharktopus Studios, Chaz Ghost, Chris Kessler, Corbinisms, Emily, Eva Padilla, Herbal D, Jesus Garcia, Kale the Dragon, Carp, King Scarlet Yu-Gi-Oh!, Lord Whoop-De-Doo, Manga Pages, Marion James E. Picata, Matt Simmons, Neo Trinity 7, Nitromo, Sarah Lo Sulci, Shaquille Solomon, Shooting Star 3300, Star-Lord 777, Superpurd, Tucker Ordorn, and the legendary Raven, as well as the wonderful Starlight Explorers you see on screen now. I'm only able to continue doing this thanks to the support of these lovely people, so if you'd like to be a part of these credits, help me in my journey to cover all of Yu-Gi-Oh's archetypes, and get all my videos just a little bit early, please check out my YouTube membership or Patreon links in the description to see if I have anything you'd like on offer.